Greetings, it's your helpful housing analyst, William Leach, bringing you the quick topic, scheduling sources. If you haven't already, pause the video and read the companion white paper that this video accompanies. Why would you ever want to schedule your sources? Well, the main reason is if you're trying to create a monthly construction loan draw schedule, you need to know what funds do I need each month and what funds will I have on hand each month. And knowing when your sources of financing are coming in is necessary for determining how much you need to borrow from your construction loan. In this example, I show that I have 5 sources. These are their totals. But what months are they going to come in? Are they going to come in at month 0 at close? Are they going to come in as construction gets completed? I have some assumption of when they're going to come in. But instead of typing these numbers into these cells directly, I want a more dynamic means of inputting the data and viewing the data. So what we've done is we have built a model that goes all the way out to 36 months, and it relies on some structured data that tells us when these sources of financing will be paid into the transaction. How do we create this? Well, let's go to the Inputs tab. And on the Inputs tab, I have 2 tables in green here. First, I have a table showing me all of my sources and their total amounts. Then I create a table that says what are the partial amounts that are going to get paid in and when are they going to get paid in. So here I'm saying we're going to get our permanent loan, we're going to get the entire amount, and we're going to get it in month 19. Now notice, what is month 19? That number doesn't really mean anything to anybody, so we're going to come over to this table of milestones. Here in this table of milestones, we're going to communicate month 19 is perm conversion. We're going to give it a nickname called convert. And we're just going to define some nicknames and some milestones for the transaction. Now, when I'm telling the permanent loan to pay in at conversion the entire $4 million, I want you to notice the formula bar. It says, doesn't say the number 19, it says C16. And that is a relative reference to this cell next to perm conversion. The purpose for this is if I ever go and I change perm conversion to 20, everywhere that I had perm conversion will update. So we'll go ahead and put it back to 19, and then we'll notice the source. Even I could just type the words permanent loan, but instead I said equals, and then I went and found the appropriate source. And the reason for that is in case I come in and I change the name permanent loan, bank, right? It'll keep the names consistent because I have a relative reference to that name. And last but not least, the amount. Instead of typing the number 4 million, I'm going to say equals and click on the 4 million cell so that if the number changes based on my calculations, let's say somewhere else in the model, I change the utility allowance. Well, I want this number to update with it. So in my sources timing table, I try to do as many relative references as possible. With the exception of 0, I usually type 0 instead of saying equals the closing month because closing is always month 0. But other than that, I try to make them relative. Now, what if it's not exactly the whole amount? Let's take this county home loan, for example. I'm showing that 10% is going to get paid in 1 month after C13, which is certificates of occupancy. So I'm assuming the county wants me to show lien-free completion, and then I'll get the last 10% of my home loan. So I've gone in and said C5, the total, times 10%. And I said it's going to get paid in 1 month after C13. Then if I come in and I change things, oh, we're not going to get C of O's till 15. Well, then I won't get my home loan till 16. Let's go ahead and undo that. So that shows you why to have them dynamic. Also, you want to make sure that they add up to the total so that all of the county home loan will be coming in at one point or another. So to achieve this, you'll notice I made the other county loan, the amount that's funded at closing, I made it the balance. I made it the total minus the 100,000 retainage. That will help keep things in balance. I could have said C5 times 90%, that would have worked as well. But using this method helps protect the total and make sure the total is accounted for. Okay, you'll see a couple other examples. Feel free to play with them to see how we went through. But in effect, we are scheduling what month this source will pay in this portion of that source. Okay, so now that we have this structured data, we have a table. Let's see what the table is called, source timing. So now we can query this table to put the information into our report. So let's go back to the report and let's start off with cell Charlie 3 and say in closing for the perm loan, how much of the perm loan is going to get paid in at closing? Well, in this example, none of it's going to get paid in at closing, so we expect to see this 0. But let's get into how the calculation is working. Okay, in the SUMIFS function, there are three classes of criteria, three classes of parameters. The first class is the sum range. What do you want me to add up? Well, we're saying add up the source timing table amount column. Let's go take a look at that. So here's the amount column. So it's saying add up everything you find in here. Okay, so that is the sum range. But now let's look at the rest of the SUMIF function. You have the next type of parameters is you have criteria. Okay, so it says I'm only going to add up the numbers that meet this criteria. Now you'll notice I have criteria range 1 and criteria 1. I have criteria range 2 and criteria 2. So this SUMIFS function is going to have two tests, and if both of them succeed, it will sum all the amounts that pass both of those tests. So let's look at my first test. My first test, criteria range 1, is that the source needs to be, look at the criteria, A3. Needs to be the words permanent loan. Okay, what's my second criteria? Criteria 2, criteria range 2, says check in the source timing table at the month column, and it needs to equal C2 or 0. And so I'm teaching it, if the source says permanent loan and the month says 0, then add it all up. Well, as you can see, nothing meets those two criteria, right? We have permanent loan, but it doesn't have month 0. It needs to have both the permanent loan and month 0 for it to count. Since nothing met that criteria, we got a 0. But in this cell below it, you can see that it did find some tax credit equity in month 0. But for the time being, let's delete this. Let's delete these. And let's talk about, once you have the formula working once, how do you copy it to the other cells? So we've created this formula. It looks like it's working. Let's take another cell to test if it's working. Let's drag it to the tax credit equity month 0 down here. So I'm going to use the autocomplete feature. I'm going to put my mouse over the box, grab it, drag it, drop it, right? And so I'm going to take a look at this formula. I'm going to go up and down, and I want you to notice what does or does not change up here in the formula bar. Okay, so when I go up, the 3 changed. And when I go down, that's it, just the 3 and the 4. That's the only thing changing when I go from one to the other. Okay, so I could use the autocomplete feature, and that will work in a vertical dragging use of the autocomplete feature. Now it will not work if I drag it to the right, and here's why. Notice these column names, amount, source, and month. When I drag this to the right, it increments these. It doesn't say amount, source, and month. It moved the amount to the column to its right. It moved the source to the column to its right. And so when you drag a formula with a column reference, it will try to give you the next column to the right. So we don't want that. So I'm going to undo all of that. And so I'll show you the easiest way to do it is to copy it to the clipboard. And then we're going to come over here, highlight all the cells that we care to have it. And I could hit paste, but instead of paste, I'm going to do paste special formulas only. That way I keep my handy dandy banded columns. You see the gray that's shown here. Okay, so what did that do? Well, you'll notice if I go up and down, only the 4 changes. And when I go right and left, you'll notice the column references do not change because the copy paste feature doesn't do what the autocomplete feature does, which is try to keep the column references relative. I pray this financial modeling example proves helpful to you in delivering housing to Californians. God bless.